Hey, Mike, I mean, I know we're on the Texas Real Estate and Finance podcast right now.
Yes, we
I
are.
don't want to steal the thunder from you. Is there anything you want to add? I mean, this is your show, brother. We're just guessing on your show. This is a really cool episode because we have another two more co-authors, right?
Yep.
My dear friend Corrina Carter is here that I just love to pieces. And I say that openly and without any risk of whatever. And then we have our new friend, Mike Mills, who, by the way, we're simultaneously doing two podcasts here, by the way. This is the first for our show. We're actually part of the Texas Real Estate and Finance podcast hosted by Mike Mills.
Yes, welcome everybody.
So Mike, I mean, this is pretty cool.
I love this. This is like the best of leveraging, right?
That's right. We're leveraging time and cross promotion. I set aside this week on my Thursdays because usually I do my show live on Thursdays from 1 to 2. But I was like, hey, this is a bigger situation here I got to take care of. So you guys are all my guests today as well. So welcome to the Texas Real Estate Finance Podcast. Thank you.
Hey, and by the way, if you want to ask us questions, Mike, honestly, turn the tables on us because Corrina did that to me in Orlando.
Be careful
with the whole show, and I was like, Joe, be careful, man. Joe, she's taking over. So is this music okay for the Texas people? Because it's kind of a groovier, it's not like Texas style. Is it okay? I don't know.
Sir, are you implying that here in Texas we don't know how to groove? Because
no, sir, not at all. No.
What are you saying, man?
No,
yes,
brother.
Of course, this is great. I love it.
Never imply that. I would never imply that in Texas.
Hey, Mike knows how to groove. I mean, he took his daughter to Taylor Swift. So
that's right. We went to Taylor Swift. We went to Harry Styles, and I'm sure I'll show you all my moves when we get to Las Vegas in October. I'll be there with bells on. So you'll see.
Oh man, I'm gonna miss that. Dang. What am I gonna do here,
Bobby? You may be rethinking that, huh?
I might have to rethink that. We'll see. So listen, guys, we have a much bigger thing we got to discuss here today, right? Because we are all writing a book called Leadership Matters, right? And all of us have our own chapter, which is really kind of cool because a chapter is basically our story, and it's really kind of like capsulized in this one moment. And we all were given a task, 1,500 words. I think, Mike, you went to 3,000 or 6,000, something like that.
I was knocking on about 6,000 and figure out I'm long-winded as it is, so you got to cut that stuff back a little bit. But I didn't want to upset Ginger, so I tried to slow it down, try to keep it as comfortable as possible because I knew she'd slap you down. Nope.
Yes. Apparently, Fobby has that the sound that I make when.
Yeah, I mean, look here, right?
Exactly.
6,000 words. How could he?
Slow it down. Easy.
So, Fobby, Alex sends me a message yesterday, and he goes, "How many pages am I allowed? Not how many words."
We talked about it, actually. I met with Alex earlier this week about something else, and we were chatting about it, and he was like, I wonder if I could get – but it's not words, it's pages.
That's what he asked. He asked how many pages. I know what he wants to do. And it's like, Alex has put it together.
Which is really cool. It's a great idea. I was like, you should definitely do that.
And that's the great thing about pulling all of these authors together is – and, Bobby, you and I worked on that. To where it's like we want to make sure we have a broad range that speaks to all the different areas in the mortgage industry. We do have people outside the mortgage industry, so obviously leadership encompasses more than what we all deal with in the mortgage industry. But that was one of the things we really wanted to make sure is that we had a mixture of leaders. From technology, from regional managers, from brokers, from, coaching and training and all of that. And I'm very happy to say that our group of authors is absolutely amazing. I can't wait. It's 1 month from today, my friend, the day of this recording. Nice. So 30 days.
Yeah. Count begins, man. The count. Corrina, I mean, about your story. Let's start with this real quick. I got to know, is there a line in your story that you wish you hadn't written? Like,
that I had not written?
Yeah, like, I wish I could just take that line out.
No, I actually, I'll just say something real quick. So I was on vacation just recently, and I kind of put one thing together first, the second one, and I let my girlfriend listen to it. She kind of did a side nod, right? And that side nod was like, not bad. And I was like, okay, I'm redoing the whole fucking shit. Oh, sorry. I'm redoing all of it.
Oh wait, we can cuss. Let's go. All right.
Of course you can.
So,
We
so
got the memo. It's in Texas, so
Yes, that's right. We cuss
Yeah.
all the time. You're good.
I redid it all with more intention. So I'm going to say no. I'm going to say no. Everything I have in there is for a reason.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. And so, Mike, I mean, your journey as into the mortgage industry, like when you were a kid, I guess you wanted to grow up and be a mortgage guy.
Nobody in mortgage ever grew up wanting to be in mortgage. Corrina, if you say you did, I'm going to call you a liar. So we all just kind of end up here, and then we're like, man, I guess I'm kind of okay at this, so I guess I'll stick around because, like, really and truly, I've always told my wife's in real estate too. She's a realtor, and anybody that's ever asked me about, like, do you just love doing loans? And I'm like, it's kind of like Groundhog Day because you kind of do the same thing over and over and over again, but it is a little different because every situation is a little different. I'm like, but there's really not a career that I can think of where the amount of flexibility as far as your time and what's required of you and the access that you have to deal with your clients, because these days, especially, the days of one-to-one sitting in an office with somebody, even when you try, there was a period in my career where I was like, I'm going to just try to meet every borrower face to face. And you get about 10% that even agree to do that. And you're like, all right. And then you got to jump through a million hoops. But the flexibility and the income potential that you have in this career and how much money you can make, depending on how much work you put into it, I don't know that there's too much, there's too many other things like that. I mean, obviously that breezes its way all the way through real estate, but that's why I enjoy it so much.
So do you think that you aspired to be a leader, or was that something that you just kind of walked into?
I think as a kid, I talked a lot, and which is why I have podcasts, because I just run my mouth a lot. And so I think anytime you're loud like I am and you talk a lot, I think you just kind of end up in those situations where people are like, well, what do you think? And it's like, oh, I didn't know you cared what I thought, but okay, here's what I think. And so to some extent, I think you just kind of end up there. But then once you get the benefits of it, meaning you feel the impact you have on other people sometimes, and you get that feedback, then it's something you crave. Then it's like, man, I want to help more people. Like if I could pick my career that associated the money to what I can generate in this job, I would be a coach, because I've coached my kids since they were, 4 years old, all the way through up to junior high when the adults took over. And it's something that I have a passion for. I ran a swim school for kids that had 2,000 swimmers, and I had an office staff of 30 people. And it was I just love that. And that's my passion. And so, and that's what leadership is you're coaching a group of people and you're trying to get them to the next level. And also, be honest that, hey, look, I don't have it all figured out either. I'm figuring this out as we go too.
Yeah. Yeah. Ginger, what's so interesting? Look, this is the third batch of co-authors we're speaking to, right? And it seems to be the same theme over and over again. Like we just kind of like wake up one morning. Like I haven't seen anybody like say, I wanted to be a leader in the mortgage industry.
Well, I think this goes back to most individuals who end up in a leadership role start out as a manager, and then I think that's a lot of it. And Fobby, you and I had this discussion too when we were selecting individuals to be in the book, and a couple of people we talked about who are not in the book. You said, I just really don't see them as a leader. And so I think for most of us, we end up in a position of management where you're responsible for managing people. But there's a big difference between being a manager and being a leader.
Yeah.
And I think that's why this book is so important, because leadership, and that's why the title, and we went back and forth on titles, and you were very, very much positioned, and it's the title Leadership Matters, because it does. And it's that part of it that I think in the journey and having conversations with the authors that I've had and reading through their chapters, that I see that most people don't come into thinking, yeah, I want to be a leader. Most people are leaders and don't necessarily know they're leaders.
That's so interesting. Corrina, you have a very unique situation because you're the owner of CMS Mortgage, right? So you're the owner, founder of CMS. So you're seeing future leaders underneath you, which I think is pretty cool because I get to see some of the guys that are following you and blossoming underneath your leadership, right?
Yeah.
explain that if you can in some words that the rest of us could understand what that feels like.
I think it feels like birthing a baby, kind of, right? You wouldn't know that though, Fobby, right? It's like you kind of for 9 months you kind of watch and see. It's kind of like the whole theme: higher, fast, fire, faster. But then when you get past that point, you're like, oh my God, they could be this, they could be this, they could be this, they could be this, and then all of a sudden they become your right hand, they become your left hand, and I think you really start looking at them differently too. And you start delegating differently, and then they start reading your mind, right? I have 4 right now that they can read my mind almost sometimes before I do, or speak for me before I do. And when I tell you I got goosebumps right now, that feels so good finally in my career that I can hand that off, or it comes back to me without even asking. That's like a blessing in disguise. I mean, it's just such an honor.
Do they know that they're in that position of leadership? Do you let them know that, hey, I trust you with this, or is it something that's assumed?
Oh no, they know, because I mess up every day, so they clean up for me too. So I mean, we never are perfect. I always say every day, I'm not 100% right and never going to be perfect. So they are constantly, evolving and helping me evolve, right? So, but they do know, because in a commission-based position for almost everybody in our industry, it's like I've always taught, how do you own your day? So once you really solidify that and you go over the bridge, and what Ginger just said is like, you don't even, I don't know when I became a leader. I've always been a manager and a boss, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I think you said it best when we were in Florida, like, where did this change? I was a faux originator, a pretty good manager and boss, and then bridged the gap over to a leader somewhere, right? Because I was always a single mom providing for my family.
Yeah.
So
Well, I really don't think that leadership is something that leaders seek out, honestly, because I think that the people that are seeking leadership, like if they're actively seeking it, those are generally people that you probably don't want steering the ship. Because just like Corrina said, she's like, I make mistakes all the time. I mess up. I'm just the fact that an individual is able to own that, because I think we can all recognize that we know plenty of people in our lives and plenty of quote leaders or managers that are always quick to blame someone else for something that went wrong. Oh, that was that person's fault, or this person, it wasn't my team. I mean, I just literally had a conversation about this today. It's you have to own your team's mistakes and your responsibilities and your own. And to be able to have that ownership and demonstrate that to your team gives you the respect, the honor, and the trust that you want from them. And then anybody that doesn't have that mindset and doesn't carry that with them doesn't need to be in leadership typically.
Yeah, but also we're setting this tone. We're setting the tone for the people in our team, right? Like, hey, look, if I can say I'm sorry, I own this, this is my bad, I didn't see this coming down the way that it did, right? Then when it's your turn, don't feel ashamed or prideful to say that.
Yeah.
And I think by example, right? I mean, Ginger, we were just talking about this recently. By example, we become better leaders. And we can then train other people to do that. So, Mike, let's stay with you for a second. Is there, like, in your story, and I didn't read it, I'm sorry, you know what I mean? So I'm just kind of like blindly just asking questions.
There's a lot of chapters in that book, so I don't.
Yeah, I didn't have time for 6,000 words or 6,000 pages.
Yeah, a lot of words.
Cue Ginger screaming again here. Let me get that. But is there like a part of your story where you know, we all have failures, and I think if you don't fail, then you're not a good leader anyway.
Yeah.
I
fail every day.
What's like a good failure lesson to you that you really felt like propelled you to where you are today?
Well, I think that I, as a young person, like I'm 45 now, so I'm not necessarily like over the hill per se. I mean, even though I guess the balloons would say so, but ultimately, like, you know, I still feel like I'm pretty young. But in my early career, I was given opportunities for leadership very early on in different roles, not necessarily in the mortgage industry. I didn't get into it till I was in my 30s, but in my early 20s, like I said, I ran a swim school for kids. We had 2,000 students. I had a staff of 30. I was 24 years old. Like that. That's how old I was when I was doing that. And I understood that I couldn't rely on everybody else, because when you first get into that role, you're waiting like a child, kind of like my mom's going to take care of this, or they're going to take care of that. They're going to handle it. And you go, wait a minute, you have to fall down several times. And then you look around, it's like, who didn't do their job on this thing? And you go, oh, wait a minute. that was me. I didn't do the job. Okay, that's on me. I got to figure that out. So I think failure is such an important thing early on. This is something I beat into my kids' head, and they just despise me for it because, you know, you can imagine living with someone that doesn't shut up all the time and has all these platitudes to tell you. It's not exactly exciting for a teenager. But one of the things that I beat into their head constantly is like when something goes bad, because they're both athletes. My daughter plays volleyball, my son plays football and baseball. When something doesn't go your way, you can take the moment in. You know, it's okay to be upset. It's okay to be frustrated. We all have feelings, like acknowledge that. But then you got to move on from that quickly and recognize what you did wrong and go back and try to fix it and improve that for the next time, because it's a cliche, but it's true, right? You don't lose, you learn. So you have to learn from your mistakes. And the more mistakes you make, especially while you're living under my roof, it's good because we can fix all that problems and we can take care of things and I can help you work through it. But when you become an adult, those mistakes carry more weight. So if you can make early mistakes early on in your career, if you can make mistakes early on in your, in your life, that is going to serve you well down the road, because when you continue to make mistakes, which I do this every day, then you can handle them better. You can learn from those better, and you learn how to deal with it overall. So I think failure early on, as much as possible, make yourself do hard things so you're likely to fail, because that's going to do you a lot of benefit down the road.
Yeah, Ginger, that kind of couples in with what Corrina was saying, seeing the loan officers transform into leaders. They're like your babies. So make the mistakes while you have the time when under the tutorship of somebody else, right?
Yeah, that safety net. And I remember I had a very good leader when I was very young. I had a recruiting job and I had totally messed up. I mean, we had this big placement and with this ad agency we were going to do, and it just totally unraveled. And it was on me. I mean, it's like I hadn't communicated and all that. And I was terrified to go into her office and to do the debrief on it. It's like, oh my God, she's going to kill me. I'm going to get fired. And so, one of the most important things, I know, Corrina, and you do this, it's like, tell me about it. And listen, we talked about this in the last podcast. Being a good listener is very important as far as leadership. But the thing she told me, I'll never forget it. She said, what did you learn? So to that lesson, it's like, what lesson did you learn? I said, this. And she goes, great. She goes, I want you to make mistakes. I want you to make mistakes. If you're not making mistakes, you are not taking enough risk.
Yeah.
And to me, being able to hear that and learn that, and I've taken that to be so much of what I do, with my team and the things that I do for leadership. And I taught the same thing with my son, Mike, to where it's like, hey, safety net's here. Make all the mistakes right here. This is the time. Because how you react to those mistakes and what lessons you've learned, and then making those adjustments and not repeating the same mistake over and over again is the sign of a great leader.
Yeah. Yeah. Hey, Mike, I mean, I know we're on the Texas Real Estate and Finance podcast right now.
Yes, we are.
I don't want to steal the thunder from you. Is there anything you want to add? I mean, this is your show, brother. We're just guessing on your show.
No, I mean, look, I'm curious when you guys sat down and you decided to, because I mean, there's a lot of very impactful individuals on this book that are, have accomplished a lot in their career. What were some of the things that you looked at to say, okay, this is what we look for in leaders? Because I think, when you're in a hiring position, right? And this kind of falls into that category. When you're in a place where you're hiring people, as you start moving up, you start hiring people in different roles, right? So maybe initially you're hiring a loan officer, then maybe you're hiring a processor, but then you may be hiring a operations manager, and you may be hiring a team manager, and someone that's the further you get removed, from ground floor, the more layers you have to some extent. And then you need leaders in those roles to be able to carry them. So I think looking at how you would evaluate a leader, like what do you look for? What are the qualities that you guys, when you were picking out authors, when you were like, okay, this person does this, like what were some of the traits that y'all looked at?
I was looking for, well, let's be honest. Ginger was a very open person. She wants everybody to just be happy. And I was very like, no, Ginger, we can't do this way. I was pretty hardcore about it. You know what I mean? Because I wanted to have a good book that had character and some oomph about it. And maybe that's that, that little bit of me, right? But I think having what kind of like we're talking about, like, did they have failures? Did I know of them? Did I know, like, I don't want to name any names. We don't want to do that, right? But there were some people that were brought up that were like, I didn't ever see them fail. Like whenever things got tough, they were bouncing to another company. That like, how could I trust that guy to write a chapter in my book?
Yep.
That kind of stuff, right? So I don't want to sound like a jerk because that's not my intent, right?
Right.
You know, I would love to write. I get along with everybody, but at a certain point, we're trying to give the market something that I think hasn't been done yet, which is we have 25 accomplished leaders in this book that are absolutely telling us exactly what happened when the shit hit the fan.
Yeah.
And that's pretty cool.
Well, and it seems like most of the lessons are generally like when you look at the themes, right? The themes overall are pretty similar, right? There's nobody's reinventing any wheels here, right? This is all stuff that's there. But I think when you can apply stories and when you can apply, you know, a point of view to a particular theme that comes from someone, that tends to resonate a little bit better, because not everybody, in having 20 points of view, you cover a lot of bases, because a lot of different people are going to have a lot of different ideas on how they approach that theme and be able to say, well, this is what I did, or this is how I would look at it.
To Ginger's credit, I mean, she was the one who I mean, I was trying to limit like maybe 14 to 15, and she was like, open up the tent. And that's to her credit, man, that we ended up with this number, because I never even imagined we could get this. I mean, I will tell you guys this, and I've said it before, I was very overwhelmed when I logged on to that Zoom call and all you co-authors were there. In all the projects that I've built a mortgage company before, I have done all sorts of, that moment I will never forget as long as I live. Because I never imagined that many people were going to be on that Zoom call at that time.
I think we all had a level of imposter syndrome. Like, why am I on this call? What's going on here? why did they pick the right person? I don't know if this is right. I suck at this. I don't know.
I mean, Ginger, you did a lot more of the picking than I did. I just kind of gave you a few names here and there. I mean, so you could probably speak more to that topic than I could.
You know, honestly, Fobby, I think one of the things for me in collaborating on this book is I have had the opportunity to meet so many impactful leaders who don't know the impact they have. And so for me, it was important to be able to involve those individuals that had that leadership quality of being a humble leader, a servant leader. We talked about this in our last podcast as well. And so that, to me, when I look at the traits of a leadership, someone who I want to, you know, mentor with or work with or involve myself with, I think that's probably the one thing. And I kept hearing it over and over, like, Mike, it's like, okay, I want you to be on this book. It's like, why me? And that was part, and some people I really had to have some heart-to-heart conversations with, because they didn't necessarily see themselves as strong leaders, even though they are in a leadership role and have been leading. And so I think that's the one thing I'm probably the most excited about with this book, is because we have such a great collection of those humble leaders who have an impact, make an impact, and don't know it. You know, it's like you, for example, Mike. And I met Mike, honestly, he called me and invited me onto his podcast, and I don't think he even knew who I was.
I did know who you were. I researched you, and I was like, I brought you on because I'm obsessed with AI, and you'd written an entire, like, in a matter of, like, the whole concept of AI came out like 2 years ago, barely, right?
Yeah.
It's like, we're really not the concept of it, but just the popular
reality.
reality. Yeah. And I look up and I'm like, okay, who knows and can talk about this? And I find Ginger, and she's literally written an entire, you know, program of education and started selling it, marketing it. And I'm like, how did she do this so fast and understand so much? And then she's like, well, why don't you look at the class and see what you do? And I go through it and I'm like, how did she do? Like, I was so blown away and impressed by her level of depth that she went into in such a short amount of time, that I was like, I got to talk to this lady, because she knows so much and I want to pick her brain as much as possible. I love picking people's brains.
Yeah. That's one thing that I think that AI will never be able to accomplish, is that leadership role.
Oh yeah.
Right. I mean, I think we can all agree with that. I mean, there are certain things that AI is limited on, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it can tell you the attributes of a leader, but it may not be able to actually accomplish it.
Well, in Ginger's class, you know, when we were doing our real estate CE for it on using AI inside of real estate, one of the one of the topics that we talk about is like the jobs that it's going to replace. Like, what will it take and what will it not take? You know, and when you look at the jobs that it can't take, there's things like human empathy and recognizing complex situations and being able to make decisions. And these are all leadership qualities and leadership responsibilities that you have to have when you're put into a role like that. And so that kind of tool, at least for now, I keep saying that. Like I always say, please and thank you when I'm talking to AI, by the way, just in case.
I do.
Just in case. But as of now, you're not going to see, you know, those type of tools. They will augment and they will help leaders do their job more efficiency or with more efficiency and better, but they're not going to replace that. You can replace a lot of things, but you cannot replace that human touch in the middle of it. Just like with realtors, they cannot be replaced as far as what their job is. I think my job might be at risk a little bit if I'm being honest, but ultimately I don't think theirs is. So, but I am curious, Corrina, for you specifically, like when you went out and decided to like, I'm going to do this on my own. Like, I'm going to go start my own thing completely. Cause we all like living under the umbrella and the comfy blanket and like, oh, everything's good here. This company's going to take care of me. What was the thing that, you know, kind of pushed you to say like, I'm going to go do this on my own. I'm going to go Han Solo this and pirate out on my own.
So I'll say 2025 is our 20-year anniversary. So it is 20 years. So I'm excited. I made it through 20 years. So I've got just a few more months to go to celebrate. But I will say, I didn't want to be like everybody else on the corner. So if it was a particular name or particular person, I wanted to be able to develop within ourselves our own character. And that's kind of what me and Fobby talked about in Florida. Like what I consider the new age originator, that was still the same originator back then, right? Is that I just wanted to be me. And I didn't want someone to compare me to another branch or another facet of an office somewhere else. And I just felt like I wanted them to just work with me. And I didn't want, like, if someone sent out a pre-qual on somewhere else, they would compare me because this other person they don't like working with. Does that make sense? So I felt like maybe at that time that would just be going off on my own. And little did I know I'd still be here 20 years later. But, you know, 3 years after I opened was 2008. So
Surprise.
Going strong.
So, but yeah, so I think for that, a lot of people look at that. And when I say then, you know, I became a manager real quick then and had 37 originators, but I still wasn't a leader, right? And I have a long ways to go to be a leader. That honored to be here with Ginger and Fobby, which we go way back. And I followed Ginger for like the past almost my whole career. And Fobby, we met, gosh, almost when I first opened my company. So just to be here and to have them pick me to be on here, I've got goosebumps because it shows how far I've came. So I'm honored because I followed them and said, I want to be like them.
One question I got to ask Corrina, right? Because this is really important. You were a single mother during all this time.
Yeah.
How did being a single mother develop your leadership skills? So
there's one thing that I did write on, but it's very quick. And I just spoke to my team about this yesterday, and we get faulted for this a lot as leaders, is we get faulted for leaving the baggage yesterday, and we move forward. And some people think that's cold, right? But if we focus too much on it and we carry it forward, it's only going to cloud our day and our vision for what we're doing today and tomorrow. So in life, as well as in business, that is one trait I say that I've always had, but then it's always been something that's been looked at and imagine a Fobby. I mean, I'm a very personal person, right? But I mean, I've been called cold-hearted most of my life, right? But I'm full of opportunities. I give opportunities, but it's because of that one trait that I feel like I'm good at, to leave it yesterday as yesterday and don't carry it forward. And that's helped me. So in being a single mom, that helped because I didn't have to carry that, which is also a fault and flaw because my kids never saw me struggle a lot, right? They don't know what 2008 was. They don't know what 2011 was, except for Deshaun was on a podcast with Fobby, and he's now my COO, Mike. He's my son. And he had to cut legal paper into letter paper because we didn't have $35 to go buy a case.
I promise you, they saw you struggle. They didn't realize it when they were that age, because kids don't have that recollection. But then as an adult, I guarantee you, he understands what you went through and appreciates it. I speak from experience on that. I remember from my childhood. So you always go through rough times as a kid. Everybody has their own version of what that is. I've heard something said before, something is only as bad as ultimately what you've experienced. So if it's the worst thing that's happened to you, it's the worst thing that's happened to you. And the reaction is the same, right? So somebody might get their leg cut off and someone else might cut their finger, but that's still the worst thing that's happened to them. And so, you internalize it the same way. But I think as you go through life and you get experience and you get wisdom, then you start to realize as an adult, when you look back on how you grew up, and you can appreciate certain things and what your family struggled to do. And then you can also understand what they actually had to fight through in order to get to where they were. So they may not have understood it, when they're 12 years old, but I guarantee you at 25, 30, 40 years old, although most of us men are pretty dumb until we're 4. I think I just started figuring things out a few years ago, but we get there eventually. It's just a slow process.
Yeah. So thank you, Fobby. So, it's been the kids and the business at the dinner table for 20 years.
Yeah. And listen, I think at the end of the day, I think Mike hit it around the head. The kids are watching. Our employees are watching.
Always.
We go back to the example that we're setting, right? And like, do we capitulate when things go rough, or do we, okay, we're going to cut the legal paper into letter size paper because that's what we got to do now, right?
Yeah.
Just that's the way it works. And I think that's the qualities that. So, Mike, to answer your question, right? This is what I was looking for when I was trying to put this book together.
Yeah.
You see what I'm saying? This is the stuff. This is the stuff that the real shit is made out of.
Yeah.
We see a lot of CEOs on CNBC, and that's great. I'm sure they got their stories as well, right?
Mm-hmm.
But these are the people that Ginger and I knew in our network that could bring these stories to life.
Yeah.
So that someone who reads these stories doesn't have to feel left out, and they have hope that they can do something greater one day, maybe.
Yeah, I think the whole idea of being positive is there for sure.
Yeah. Well, that move from that thought process of manager into leader,
mm-hmm.
and what that looks like. I remember years ago, I was training director for a wholesale lender, and they had an AE that had just been put into regional director role. And he came to me and he said, what classes should I take? What should I do to learn, not management? And that's what I loved about leadership, because we manage things, we lead people. And so I was blessed early on in my career to have an opportunity to work for Dale Carnegie and was a training consultant. And so I told him, take the leadership training for managers, because that's the connect. It's the leadership training for managers. And he did. And today he's done an amazing job. He's one of our authors. And so that's the thing. It's like, you want to be a good leader, start by identifying that you're a leader.
I think we're going to come to the end of this episode, Mike. Are you okay with ending it?
Yeah, we're good, man. I think it's I'm excited for the release of the book. I think this is going to be really impactful for a lot of people. And I think ultimately, like, it's a great thing that, again, there's so many different perspectives on how this can be done. And one of the things I get frustrated with sometimes when anybody talks about any kind of training, sales training, leadership training, management training, whatever it is, they all say, well, I've heard that before. I know what it is. And it's like, you do know what it is, but you're not putting it into practice. And the reason for that is because you have to be reminded. I think I put it in the book, in my chapter, is your brain is for having ideas. It is not for holding ideas. So these type of things, you have to constantly remind yourself, because it's not going to stay there if you don't put it in front of your face every day. So yeah, you may know the themes in the book, but you don't understand what they are until you go through it over and over and remind yourself over and over again till it really sinks in.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. So look, on behalf of the Texas Real Estate and Finance Podcast, we are out of here. And go, Mike. You're on.
So I had, again, in the world, you can't make this up. So I, early on in my career, I was doing a refinance for a couple, and I had gone, because back in those days, especially, we do this more so these days. You go to closings, right? You show up, you want to make sure you get your face seen and all that kind of stuff. So I'd been dealing primarily with the wife in the transaction, which is pretty typical in our world. You talk to somebody as the primary contact, and then someone else is kind of helping out or whatever. So we go to it. We sit down at the table. Everything's kind of starting to get signed. The husband comes in and he starts signing. And as we all know, there's that alias stock, right? Here's your different names that you had, and we pull up. The closer pulls up her. She's like, okay, you sign yours and you sign his, and his had like one little adjustment because it's always like the middle initials weird or whatever. Well, she actually had like 3 different names, like 3 different last names. And he looked over at her and he's like, why is your list so much longer than mine? And she's like, I didn't, you could see her start getting really flustered. And I look at the closer and she's looking at me and we're like, what's going on here? And he goes, why? I don't remember the exact, he's like, who's Shelly Jones? And she's like, well, that's, I was married. I was married before this. And he's like, you were married before us? And she's like, yes. He's like, you never told me. They've been married for like 15 years. She's like, you never told me? And he's like, no. And so me and the closer again. And he's like, well, who's Shelly Williams? And she's like, well, then I got married again after that. So we're sitting at the table and they're starting to argue. And the closer and I are both like, you know what? We're going to step outside for just a little bit. You guys go ahead and have a conversation and we'll come back, and figure out what we're going to do. So ultimately they closed the loan because it was saving them money. It was a refi or whatever. And they had to do it, but they had never, she had signed on. I don't know how they got to that point without knowing that, but it was the most uncomfortable situation that I'd ever been in, and sitting in a closing room face to face with this husband and wife. And I felt so bad for her because she was just wrecked and he was mad. And it was like, all right, I got to get out of here.